We all love our big budget AAA JRPGs, but I find that some of the coolest games in the genre can be found in the indie space. So in this video, I'll be sharing 25 of the coolest upcoming indie JRPGs. And one of the best things you can do for these small developers is to wishlist their games. You have no idea how much it gives them a boost in visibility on Steam and on other platforms, so I'll leave links to as many of them as possible down below so you can support the games that you think look really cool. Do you love classic dungeon crawlers? Then this video's sponsor, Class of Heroes 1 and 2 Complete Edition, is going to be right up your alley. This beloved JRPG dungeon crawler series returns, fully remastered for a new generation with gorgeous visuals and a silky smooth frame rate. The life of a student awaits you as you learn from your professors, build your perfect team, increase affinity amongst students, and crawl through nearly endless dungeons. You can customize your team of 6 to your liking from looks, gender, name, class, and much more. Be sure to pay attention to class affinities as they'll give you the added edge you'll need in combat. And if exploring is your thing, then get ready, as both games combine for nearly 200 dungeons and 250 enemy types. And if you like getting value from your games, you're looking at up to 100 hours of gameplay between both games for only $40 US. That's crazy. Class of Heroes 1 and 2 Complete Edition is out now for PC, PS5, and Nintendo Switch. I'll leave links in the description so you can order your copy today. Thanks once again to PCube for sponsoring this video, and now back to the video. First up, we have AIKODE. This might be the most ambitious game on this entire list. It's a real-time 3D action RPG, and it has shades of Nier and even some shades of maybe even Kingdom Hearts. The game is full of colossal battles. There's this giant world to explore, plus lots of ways to explore it, like just walking around on foot, riding a motorcycle, or even flying. And the game even touts some sort of free time segments where you can just walk around the city and do whatever you want. And the really crazy thing is this is only being developed by one person. Very impressive. Now recently this game sort of had a preview blast of the demo with a lot of different YouTubers covering the game, so if you want some more in-depth coverage and some more impressions of people that have actually played the game, definitely go search it up on YouTube. Alterium Shift is a throwback style JRPG with gorgeous pixel art and 3 different character perspectives on the same story. Now you'll have turn-based combat, and what's really cool is the game sort of has these map abilities. For example, you can like destroy rocks in the environment or shoot far off targets. Think of something like the Wild Arm system where each character has their own different abilities. And what's really wild is the game seems to have dynamic quests and a branching storyline, so each playthrough is really different. And if you're curious about this game, it's in early access right now, and it also has a free demo available for you to try, so if you want to check that out, I'll leave a link in the description. Alzara Radiant Echoes is a gorgeous looking 3D turn-based JRPG, and it has a lot of veteran JRPG developers on it, including music from Motoi Sakuraba, who did the Tales series, character designs from Yoshiro Ambe, who did a lot of the character designs for Trials of Mana. So if you look at this key art, it probably looks very familiar. The game also has this really vibrant, colorful world. I just want to explore every inch of it. It looks incredible, and it seems like elements have a key role, from the story, combat, to puzzles, as each of the playable characters kind of has their own element that's tied to them. Now recently it's smashed through its initial Kickstarter goals with regular exciting updates going on, so if you want to support the game, you can go on Kickstarter to support it or just wishlist it on Steam. Any little bit of support helps the developers. Arisen Force Vonimir is an HD 2D style JRPG with real-time action combat where you can swap party members on the fly mid-combat. And it also has some really beautiful character portrait art. Throughout the game, you'll be able to rescue and recruit a vast array of different characters to your party. As soon as I saw this, it really caught my eye. It looks super fun, and the really cool thing is it's one of the few games on this list that kind of has a release window coming out in Q4 2024. So hopefully it'll actually hit that mark so we can check it out. Now, it might be a stretch to call Armed Fantasia an indie game, but it was funded on Kickstarter. The team seems relatively small, less than 20 people, and they're self-publishing it, so that sounds pretty indie to me. Now, basically, this is a spiritual successor to Wild Arms from a lot of the original team. It has that sort of Western punk setting. You have gadgets to navigate the world and solve puzzles, just like in Wild Arms. Really cool-looking turn-based combat, a really fun-looking cast of characters. The character designs are absolutely incredible, not to mention a gorgeous anime art style. I just can't get enough of how this game looks. Now, there hasn't been a ton shown outside of their initial Kickstarter video, but supposedly they're aiming for a release sometime in 2025, and it looks like they're going to be self-publishing the game. And if you want to know even more about the game, you can join their Discord on their website, so I'll leave a link to the website down below so you can learn more. Imagine combining Story of Seasons, Shin Megami Tensei, and Stranger Things, and you basically have Bloomtown, a different story. A demonic world is tearing apart your cozy town, and it's up to you and your friends to save it. Now, in the game, you'll be capturing demons in this other world to help you fight in turn-based combat. And each of the different characters has their own weapons, and it's really wild to see these little kids with big weapons like swords and guns. And on top of that, there's free time activities, like you can just go work out, fishing, hang out with your friends, and tons more. Not to mention it has a really gorgeous pixel art style, and I've had my eye on this game for quite a few years, so definitely consider wishlisting it. It looks awesome. I can't wait to play it. Card-en-Ciel is a deck-building roguelike RPG very obviously inspired by the Mega Man Battle Network games. And that's pretty fitting because the developer of this game, Inti Creates, also made Mega Man 9, Mega Man 10, and the Azure Striker Gunvolt games. Now, if you've been really missing those Mega Man Battle Network games, like maybe you picked up the collection and you want more of them, this game could be right up your alley. It's got a great art style, the gameplay looks super fun, and what's really cool is it's probably the only game on this entire list that actually has a release date of October 24th, and it's also coming to all consoles. So definitely check that one out. Dark Deity II is the follow-up to the 2021 strategy RPG, and it was one of my favorite games that year. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this series, it's a strategy RPG series inspired by the Game Boy Advance era Fire Emblem games. Now, what's cool about this one is that it's a direct sequel where you play as descendants of the previous game's main character, Irving. And what's cool is it seems to have a new setting with new classes, kind of Western inspired with like cowboys and stuff like that, and probably a lot of new gameplay elements as well. I absolutely love the original. I can't wait to play this one, and I know one of the biggest complaints from the last one was that people were hoping it would come to Switch. The original game did come to Switch, and I believe this one's coming to Switch day one. Don't hold me to that, but it's definitely coming to PC. So if you like strategy RPGs, in particular classic Fire Emblem games, this one will be right up your alley. Demonschool is a stylish strategy RPG with a Persona-esque twist. You'll play as a university student, and you'll have tons of free time to hang out with your friends and increase bonds, on top of going through these really wild-looking combat scenarios. And it's kind of hard to explain, but the combat seems sort of momentum-based, where depending on how you move will affect the different abilities you can perform in combat. And what's neat is this also sort of has a horror vibe to it, with lots of really cool, sick-looking art. I love horror games and JRPGs, so this seems like the perfect melding of the two. And supposedly it's coming out in Q2 of 2024, and we're sort of running out of time. So maybe in one of these upcoming showcases that are taking place during the traditional E3 window, maybe it'll shadow drop. So this game looks like it's up your alley. You might not have to wait that much longer. Escape from Ever After is a gorgeous looking Paper Mario inspired RPG. The premise is that a corporation has taken over the different fairy tales, and you need to hop into the various storybooks to save them. And what's cool is you'll team up with various fairy tale characters like wolves, dragons, and much more. And much like Paper Mario, it has timing based combat, super charming, beautiful art style. It looks incredible, and of course a really jazzy soundtrack. So if you're in that mood for more Paper Mario, especially with the remake just coming out, and you want some more, well, keep an eye on this one. It looks really neat. Flowstone Saga is a 16-bit JRPG that spans across islands for an epic adventure. Right away, you can tell that it has a beautiful pixel art style, but the really unique thing about this game is its combat system. Essentially, you kind of play Tetris to do damage. Now, what's interesting is you can do sort of real time, and you're building blocks as the enemy is dropping stuff on you, or you can play it in a turn-based mode. So however you want to tackle it, it's cool that it has different options. Now, depending on how they set up these battles, it could get annoying, especially depending on how often you do fights, but if it has good pacing, this game could be amazing. What a unique idea for combat. And that's another game that's also coming pretty soon, so that's a game I've had on my wish list for Steam for a long time, and I'm definitely going to be there day one. Food Devils is one of the most interesting games on this entire list. It's a roguelike strategy RPG with tons of different options and cool looking strategy RPG combat. Now, on top of just being a roguelike where you're trying to get as far as you can, you also run your own restaurant. And what's cool about the restaurant is you can customize the decor, the food, and much more about it. And on top of all of this, if all those features weren't enough, there is a romance option where you can romance different devils. But according to the description, it's very unconventional because, well, devils have their own desires that may not be normal. This game is set for a 2025 release, and I'm definitely going to keep my eye on it. Easily what grabs you right away with Forge of the Fae is its gorgeous pixel art style and really cool lighting. My immediate thought is that it reminded me of Sea of Stars, and that's not a bad game to be compared to. It has some cool looking turn-based combat as well as some interesting customization options. Now, I was watching the trailer and it has this amazing Celtic inspired soundtrack, very reminiscent of like Chrono Cross, as well as a Celtic inspired story. They haven't shown much footage, but what they have shown so far looks really promising, and I'm looking forward to hearing more anytime they want to share it. Now, one game I've had on my Steam wishlist for a little while now is Keylocker. It's a cyberpunk-inspired turn-based RPG. What's cool though is you can kind of create and choose your own character at the very beginning, and its combat is sort of rhythm-based with time button presses. Now, I'm always wary of combat like this because it could get annoying, but it could be cool if it's done right. And the other thing I love, no random encounters. You can see the enemies on the field, just like games like Chrono Trigger. And what's cool is they seem to be really leaning into the music aspect of the game, as it looks like there's sort of a Guitar Hero inspired minigame, which I love. Overall, it just looks really cool, and supposedly it's coming out pretty soon. One of my favorite games on this entire list is Kingdoms of the Dump. The description for it is just pure gold. It's a Super Nintendo style JRPG set in a world of garbage made by two janitors. I mean, what else do you really need to know? But the combat does have timed button hits, kind of like Paper Mario or Super Mario RPG. You can do character swapping on the field, and each character has their own unique abilities. Again, think like something like Wild Arms, and also has really cool, super detailed pixel art. Now, obviously, we've never really seen a game about garbage, and I think one of the main characters looks like a garbage can. I'm gonna keep my eye on this one. This one looks really cool. Described as a turn-based buddy cop isekai RPG, my familiar looks really wild. It has a really beautiful pixel art style, and it has some pretty grotesque designs. It really reminded me of like the 90s, think like Ren and Stimpy, stuff like that. Plus, I love the idea of playing as animal cops in sort of this grungy cyberpunk world. It's certainly not going to be for everybody, but it seems right up my alley, so I can't wait to try it out. Now, one of the coolest games in this video, and the one I'm most concerned for, is Pennyblood. Now, it's a spiritual successor to the Shadow Hearts games. It's a horror-themed turn-based RPG. I love this idea. I love the setting. Very moody, very cool. And it was paired with Armed Fantasia, a game that I mentioned earlier in this video, in a double Kickstarter. However, it seems like they haven't found a publisher yet, and in fact, the team released a hack-and-slash roguelike game called Pennyblood Hellbound, seemingly in an effort to make some extra money to keep development funded for the main game. Everything they've shown so far, from its gritty setting, dark vibes, and carryover mechanics from Shadow Hearts, look really neat, but I don't know if this one's going to make it to the finish line. So if this game looks up your alley, go support them however you can, buy their new game. I think there's definitely ways to still pay into the Kickstarter, or just give them some encouragement over on their Discord. From the team that brought us Shadows of Adam comes Quartet. This throwback style RPG is inspired by the Saga series in that there are 4 character stories and you can play them in any order and they're intertwined. Loving that setup. And it also looks like it has some really cool turn-based combat, some fantastic pixel art, and this intriguing approach to storytelling. Shadows of Adam is considered one of the best indie JRPGs, so whatever these guys do next is probably going to be quality. One of the latest Kickstarter indie darlings is Runa. This JRPG looks absolutely ambitious and huge for only a team of 3, boasting a ton of wild features like a huge 3D world, mini games, cooking, farming, base building, relationship systems, a story rich with depth, and dynamic turn-based combat. It almost sounds too good to be true. In fact, I'm really wary of Kickstarter games with huge ambitions like this, especially with such a small team. However, I'd love to be proven wrong with this one. In fact, I hope I'm wrong, because everything they've shown in gameplay so far looks incredible. So hopefully it all comes together in the end, because more good games is only a good thing. Sacrifire is one of those games that's been lingering for years, but looks to finally be coming out in 2024. It's a 2.5D pixel art RPG. It has a gorgeous visual art style, a mix of action and turn-based combat, and seems to be pulling a lot of inspiration from Valkyrie Profile from its platforming, and even the same composer Motoi Sakuraba. I was actually asked to try this game pretty recently, so I think that means it's coming out pretty soon. So if anything about this game sounds or looks interesting, keep your eye on it, because it's probably not going to be too far off. Shrine's Legacy is a mana-inspired game with 16-bit visuals and real-time action combat. Each of the characters sort of have these elemental tools that you can use in combat and also for puzzles. At least that's what it looks like in the trailers. And I know a lot of you guys are always asking for co-op in JRPGs, and this is probably the only game on this list that actually has co-op. It also has a demo to try, so if you're liking what you're seeing, you can go try it right now. Sky Ocean's Wings for Hire was a game seemingly made especially for me. It's a lighthearted, charming looking RPG set across the skies, and you play as a sky pirate. It has this impressive, really cool looking art style, low polygon, kind of reminiscent of Mega Man Legends, and the developers themselves said they were inspired by Studio Ghibli. And what's interesting is the turn-based combat isn't with your characters, but it seems to be in your planes, which is really cool. So I don't know what kind of things they're going to be able to do with that. Maybe you can do different maneuvers with your planes, but I love that. And also there's a lot of side quests where you can gain the trust of villagers as you do these different quests. And overall, it's just oozing with charm. Right now, it has a 2024 release window, and I hope it hits it because this game looks really good. The Time I Have Left hands down has the most intriguing premise of any game on this list and easily the most unique looking visual style. In the game, you play as a girl named Aline, marked for death by a phenomenon called miasma. Now what's wild is you have 6 hours to live and there's a timer going down at all times, and it shows in the top right corner, but seemingly time flows in strange ways in the underground city she's in called Colony 7. Now throughout the game, you're going to be exploring, gathering clues, and fighting monsters in turn-based combat. The developers describe the game having some really interesting twists to turn-based combat, like the way you dodge and the way you hit enemies and where you hit enemies. It's kind of hard to tell from the trailers, but I'm down to see whatever they're going to try. And man, that visual style is so alluring, so unique. It kind of has this really like mysterious, eerie vibe to it. It seems like it has this mix of horror, cyberpunk, traditional JRPG, all kind of smashed into one, and it looks amazing. Easily one of the top games on this list for me, and whenever it comes out, I can't wait to try it. Wander Stars is an absolutely wild looking game. It wears its 90s anime inspiration on its sleeve with its visual style and all the different things you can do in the game. In fact, in a lot of ways, it kind of reminds me of Time and Eternity in that it seems like the character models are 2D hand-drawn. Now, the combat system sounds insane. Essentially, as you explore the world, you collect different words, and then you put them in sort of a deck to make custom attacks. So for example, you could do a move called Super Fire Kick, and then it does a Super Fire Kick. I don't know exactly how it works, but it sounds awesome. Think of games like Xenogears and Legend of Legaia, where you can sort of build your own combos. And it sounds like the story is going to be structured like an anime. In fact, it says there's 10 episodes that are about 60 to 90 minutes long each. And if you grew up in the late 90s era of anime with like Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, stuff like that, this game seems tailor-made for you. And last but certainly not least, we have Zerra's Adventure. As soon as I saw this game, it charmed the pants off me. It has a really great sense of humor and weirdly good sound design, something I don't really talk a lot about in my videos, but if you watch the trailer, you'll know exactly what I mean. It also has some really cool looking turn-based combat, puzzles, mini games, and much more. And thankfully, it's pretty short. They said they're trying to respect players' time. It's going to be 10 hours or less. And as someone who has increasingly less free time these days, something shorter sounds right at my alley. Now, if you made it this far into the video and want even more indie JRPGs, I want to share a special treat with you. I started a mega thread on Twitter with tons of amazing indie JRPGs I just couldn't squeeze into this video. So if you want even more, be sure to check out that thread and see what everybody's talking about. And if you think I should make a sequel to this video, be sure to like this video and drop a comment letting me know I should make another one. Now, these are all really cool JRPGs that we can look forward to in the future, but to see the best JRPGs that have already come out in 2024, be sure to check out this video right here. And special thanks to Reset Switch, Tyler Kuzawa, and the Miyazaki Man for supporting me over on Patreon. To get exclusive videos and other cool perks, consider supporting me over on patreon.com/thegamingshelf. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.